Buddy, welcome to Capital to the Coast BNI. My name is Mike Manning. Each week, we bring you a local small business success story from one of our 41 chapters spreading from Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, we call the Triangle, all the way to Wilmington, North Carolina, and the coastal region. If you're not familiar with BNI, it is Business Networking International, the world's largest networking organization. And our goal each week is to help each other grow our business, following BNI's motto of givers gain. And our local small business success story today is David Birkhead with Birkhead Realty Group, affiliated with Fathom Realty. David is the creator of the BNI Generosity Core Group that now has 15 members. They need to get to 20 to be a BNI chapter, and they're well on their way for that. They meet Monday mornings at 8:30 a.m. at Apple Law in Clayton. That is in the Flowers subdivision. So if you are in that region, in that area, in that neighborhood, actually, on Monday mornings at 8:30, please stop by. You'll meet a very good group of talented professionals who will welcome you and learn more about you, see how they can help you. David, how are you today?
Good, good. Great to be here. Thanks, Mike.
Yep, glad to have you on the show. David is a residential realtor. He owns he sits in the residential realtor seat. So again, if you're not familiar with BNI, we call them seats, and BNI is seat specific. So there's one realtor, one mortgage lender, one photographer, things like that. So David, your rationale for wanting to start a BNI chapter was what?
So three legs of my business. One of those is referrals and business to business relationships in the community. And I've been in BNI before in a previous life when I was heavy into marketing and running a magazine in Raleigh. So I'd had great success with that. And so when it came time to think about adding this as one of the legs in my strategy moving forward, BNI was an obvious choice.
So folks, if you know any realtors, I think David, I think it's fair to say most people know at least one realtor, correct?
At least, at least.
At least, yeah. The assumption is, and I didn't really know this till I joined BNI, but the assumption is, oh, I'll get my license, a flexible schedule, houses are selling pretty quick. I'll put my sign out, call a couple friends, make a couple $100,000. But David, what they don't teach you at real estate school is a I don't think they teach you truly how to market and grow the book of business, but they don't tell you that you might meet me today on June 30th, and I might not be ready till January 4th of 2026. So how do you process that? And how do you look at that as a positive, knowing that today I'm interested?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, such a big question. I knew this at the time when I was going through my licensing, but experience teaches you the wisdom, right? Um, uh, you know, when getting licensed, it's about. I love the analogy of a boat, right? So licensing is just the hitch on the truck that pulls a boat. It's got nothing to do with whether that boat's going to float, what directions it's going to go, how fast it's going to go, how many people it can hold. So the licensing piece, you'll hear people going through licensing. Oh, it's so hard. And in North Carolina, licensing is hard. I actually pulled out. This is the licensing book. So all of that is just to teach you how not to get in real estate jail. It's got nothing to do with whether or not you're good at cultivating relationships and uh, and helping someone move towards a position where they're ready to transact, whether they're ready to do real estate. So absolutely, not only do you want them to feel comfortable and trusting you as their realtor, you want them to know that you can solve some problems for them. That relationship, if you think about any relationship you have, it doesn't start with hello, right? It comes with time and getting to know you and building that relationship to move forward. Yeah.
And David's wife, Tabitha, is also part of the Birkhead Realty Group. And actually, she was a realtor before you were, correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I was actually working for a company on the coast called Singularity University. I was a product manager for an innovation platform that they had. And my wife needed some help. And in North Carolina, you can't even open a door for somebody unless you're a licensed realtor. So I had gotten my license to help her. And then the company I was working with was seed funded. It was, invested investors were supporting the company. They were about 480 employees, and they needed to fix a P&L. And so they laid off a bunch of people. And then the week after COVID hit. So I found myself unemployed, but with a real estate license and a pro realtor that I was married to. So it was a nice kind of crosshairs intersection of opportunity to transition into real estate. And then, of course, COVID was a great time from a real estate perspective, but also a terrible time for new realtors because you had a lot of business that you didn't earn. There was just so much business in the marketplace that honestly, if you had a pulse as a realtor, you could do real estate. And then the opposite side of that is, well, now it's the opposite. We're in a slow period in real estate. In real estate, we think of it as a 10-year cycle. Half of those years, well, actually, about 3 of those years are going to be great. 3 of those years are going to be terrible. And the other 4 years are just transitional years, right? So you've got to be able to survive the highs and the lows in the market. COVID, because of the low interest rates, was our high. It was what I call the salmon run, right? The fish were just jumping in the boat. And now we're on the opposite side of that. So where you prove yourself as a realtor and as a business owner is can you weather the marketplace? And
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 we're,
thank you for bringing up Tabitha, by the way.
yep,
I'm staying out of real estate jail, but you're also helping me stay out of marital jail.
I'm there. Hey, man, I'm there for you. So
Yeah.
now we're going to get to David and Tabitha's family life and what that blended family. We're going to get to that in a minute. But David, I always like asking husband-wife teams
Mm.
that are truly in the business together. Only two simple questions. There, I don't know why it's so hard to answer
I
these.
feel like this is
Uh,
a trap.
you very much so, yes. One is, what do you two talk about after 5 o'clock? And the second question is, who breaks the tie?
Mm. Well, Tabitha's better at not talking about real estate after 5 o'clock. I will tell you, she is the more balanced of the two of us. I pretty much live and breathe and am thinking about real estate all the time. So she's really good at saying, "Hey, it's time to put that away," and she's also great about come out of your office and engage your family that's downstairs waiting to have a meal. So I commend her for helping me stay balanced. She is the one that breaks the tie. One of our gifts from real estate from a life perspective is we have a special needs son. So for my wife, real estate is also balance. It's a way to be able to have a job with great flexibility and also tend to the needs of our special needs son.
And you answered the third question I generally follow up with is, who's more likely right before you go to bed, say, honey, I'm just going to check emails real quick.
That's me. And Tabitha, in fact, it happened last night. It was 10 o'clock at night, and I grabbed my computer and sat down on the couch, and she says, "Are you really doing that right now?" And
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, you're right."
You had mentioned a previous life was non-real estate, and I believe the description you had, I think it was on your real estate website, that you help companies avoid pitfalls. So you as a realtor, how do you help buyers and sellers avoid those pitfalls as they're in the middle of their transaction?
Oh yeah. Well, so this is, one of the interesting topics in the marketplace right now is how's technology changing the industry, and am I fearful of being replaced by AI and a robot? And what I love innovation. I welcome it. In fact, much of my professional life has been about allowing technology and innovation to change the marketplace. I think what happens though is the personal touch becomes the concierge. It becomes the premium when you have a human involved to handle that. Almost every transaction has a problem, and so it's always interesting to me. I'll run into somebody who says, "Oh yeah, we just we're looking for a house," and inevitably conversation comes up about who's helping you with that transaction, and they'll say, "Well, my brother just got their license, my daughter just got their license." And that's great because everyone's got to start somewhere, and those people ideally have a team behind them. But really, at the end of the day, real estate is being licensed is really again, it's the boat hitch. It gets the boat in the water. But how you're going to make sure that boat floats or that transaction floats are really individual characteristics, having nothing to do with license. Do you have an ability to communicate effectively? Can you prevent a transaction from having gotcha moments? And ultimately, that's what you're trying to avoid. And that means that when you made your offer, you represented your buyer well, the intention was there. You communicated clearly. You've got a great relationship with the realtor on the other side. Those are all soft skills that have got nothing to do with whether or not you're understanding the property. Obviously, you want to know those things, but those are the things that can be handled by innovation. Having the soft skills to be able to read the room and know how to handle the relationships on the other side, that's a little more complicated. And those are the skills that make a successful transaction.
And I've learned that about realtors because I think the average, if I buy a house from you today, it'll likely be what, 5 to 7 years before I may think about moving again. So I'm not you, I can't buy a house from you every year or doubtful that I will. So it's staying in touch. It's knowing that, okay, I had such a good experience with David and Tabitha. I'm going to tell 22 friends. So once you do help me buy or sell a house, what kind of things do you do to stay in touch with me to help you grow your book of business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a pretty well-known stat. After a transaction, this is one of the things that the National Association of Realtors surveys, right? So after a transaction, I think it's 80%, might be a little higher, of people say that they had a good experience with their realtor and they would use that realtor again. But we know that only about 11% do. So what happens between that 80% and that 11? What happens is the realtor forgot to maintain the relationship. So we do all sorts of things. I am a big CRM guy, not to expose my secrets on why I'm so attentive, but I let my CRM do the work. So what I know is in order to be top of mind for the number of people that I need to be top of mind for, in order to do the business I want to do in the year, I need to be nurturing about 2,500 contacts, and I need about 600 of them to know me by name
Wow.
in order to do my base level of business, right? And that's because only 8 to 9% of the country moves in a year, and I'm going to get one part of that pie, right? So I try to touch, we call them touches. I try to reach out to everyone in that database 33 times a year. So, and that's not necessarily a phone call. That's a phone call. That's a paying attention to them on social media. That's a postcard saying hello. It's been a while. It's a coffee. It's a drop by with depending on the level of the relationship. Probably one of the most important parts um, of that kind of 33 touches is if that contact would be awkward for you, it's going to be awkward for them. Someone who knows me from afar, it would be really weird for me to stop by their front door and drop off something for them, a gift, when I don't have that kind of connection or relationship with them. I think that's where a lot of realtors get it wrong. A lot of salespeople get it wrong. Is the conversation you have with that person appropriate for where you are in the dating process of them as a customer, right?
Yeah, because you need to sell without selling. And a lot of times we forget as business professionals, we have to remain top of mind. Because if you haven't talked to me in 9 months, I may think, oh, yeah, I remember David, or worse, "Huh, I wonder if he's still in the real estate business. I
Right.
likely would have moved on to someone else. So I,
Right.
I always stress to people just it could be the monthly newsletter with a tip on about your industry, a cool summer recipe, and a picture of something.
Yeah,
And you're
me.
good because you're just waving at me. You're just waving
Yeah.
at me at that step. Yeah.
It's just awareness. It's just
Yeah.
awareness, and then you're going to have things that attract them a little closer. If they're active, so there's some great technology out there, right? So I might have someone in my database who sits somewhat idle for years, and all of a sudden, I can see that they're starting to look at properties. Now they might just be window shopping, their idea of a move might still be 3 years out, but it's my opportunity to start to try to develop that relationship more and find out why are they looking. They could be looking for an adult child, or I have people come to our website and I talk to them about once a month who just love window shopping. They have no plans on moving, but it's a great excuse to develop the relationship. Oh, I love that house too. It's a great property. What do you like about it? Um, and it, and I'm not trying to push them into buying or selling, but I'm a realtor, and if they want anything, I want them to know that I'm a local expert, not just about houses, but if they need their windows cleaned or they need a new floor or they're having a plumbing issue or electrical issue, I want them to know me beyond just the guy who sells houses.
Yeah, so your dad had a pretty cool job, which took you growing up all over the world, many cool places. So what did you learn about people as you were moving around growing up, and how did some of those things come back to you for you to apply building relationships with folks in this area?
Great question. What did I learn about people? I probably learned more about myself, quite honestly,
Huh?
as a kid moving around. In middle school, I went to a different middle school all 3 years of middle school, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And then I went to a different high school. And then I went to, so for fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth grade, I had a different group of people from a school perspective. So that probably had a big influence on me as far as um, being comfortable in the room. I'm naturally an introvert, so it's not really what I seek out. But I was forced to adapt and get to know people. What I've learned universally about people is really we're more the same than we are different, despite cultural differences or boundaries. We all want to have a good life and a safe place to live and friends and connections. And so um, I think, what is a good relationship in Hong Kong when I was a kid is the same thing that made a good relationship when I lived in Houston as a middle schooler.
Where was your favorite place to live now that you look back?
New Wilmington, Pennsylvania, because it was the most different from all the places. Hong Kong is a huge city. It's Manhattan on steroids. It's bigger. Like Hong Kong does more international business than in a day than probably Manhattan does in a year. It's huge. So we think of New York City as being big. New York City is small compared to Hong Kong, right? So I was a kid growing up in Hong Kong. That was big city. Then we moved to Houston, Texas, which I did not like at all. Um, it was just miserably hot. We're having
Yes.
a hot spell right now, but that's like a whole nother level of hot. And and it was very, I want to speak kindly here because I have friends that still live in the area, but a little pretentious. And then New Wilmington, Pennsylvania is a small Amish town, rural. The only reason it really exists on the map is because there's a college called Westminster College. It was my dad's retirement job, if you will. Um, and It was a rural, large Amish population. And honestly, there was a lot of space to run around and get in trouble without getting in trouble, right? So you had some freedom. I was one of two people who graduated from my class of 94 people. Um, who hadn't started kindergarten together. That's how static the population was. So where everybody was like, "Oh, I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to leave this town." I was like, "This place is fantastic. If you've got a problem, you know everybody." So I love New Wilmington. New Wilmington was a great town.
Yeah, and forgive me, folks, I'm having some internet connection here at the house, so if there's a dead spot, that's probably on my end. So, had anybody in your family been in real estate before?
No, no.
Okay.
Other than our own transactions, our personal transactions. By the time I became a realtor, I'd lived in, oh gosh, I think 17 different locations by the time I became a realtor. So I certainly had seen, I certainly know what the value propositions are when it comes to sitting down with someone and helping them think about a move, right? And especially someone who's lived in the same house for 30 years, and now all of a sudden they're supposed to pack up and figure out how to consolidate yard sales, get rid of things. I've yet to meet anyone that's lived in a house for 30 years who is up to date on all their maintenance on their house. So what does that mean? From a sales strategy perspective. So having moved a lot, I certainly have a lot of empathy for what's involved when it comes to making a move.
So how many states did you live in?
Oh, in the United States, gosh, let's see, one, two, three, only five, five, only five, six, six. I keep adding to it.
And how many countries?
Countries only three, only
All right.
three. So it was born in Falls Church, Virginia, Virginia to Houston, to Malaysia, to Hong Kong, and then back to Houston, and then I've been in the States ever since. I've been in the
Uh-huh.
States for most of my adult life now. I moved back to the States when I was 10 or 11.
Uh, what do you wish you knew on day -1 of being a realtor that you know today?
Hmm. So the thing that surprised me most, which honestly, because of my business background, I should have known better, yeah, are the businesses that feed off of realtors. So, brokerages, for example, the brokerage model, the big national brands that most people recognize, their business is realtors. It's not real estate. It is capturing realtors, providing a service to realtors, and that's their business model. It's got nothing to do with buying and selling a house. It has to do with managing people, um, and that is a huge profit center for those brokerages. And then there's hundreds of companies that want to um, who want to provide a service to make your life easier. And this is a little bit of a soapbox, but there's a lot of businesses out there that want to diminish you as a realtor. They want to take responsibility away from you to make your life easier, and they want you to pay a premium for that. I think it makes you weaker as a realtor when you start giving away areas of responsibility. That's not to say that you shouldn't be thinking about scaling, but who owns that scaled resource? There's a lot of businesses out there who want to help you with that scaling, but they want to own it. And so you end up giving away operational parts of your business that if you ever want to change down the road as a realtor, you sabotage yourself because you don't own that piece of your scaling, right? So I think for me, one of the things I learned over the first couple of years was how important it is that the resources that I use to scale my business are owned by me. And maybe there's a third party that is providing that service. But at the end of the day, the data, the system belongs to me. They're enabling my system. I'm not enabling theirs. So it's an interesting to see the real estate world operate. There's a lot of real estate business that has got nothing to do. Zillow is a great example. Big Gorilla, they own 60% of the real estate market from a lead generation perspective. They have not sold or bought a house ever. They're a lead capture system, and that's one of the things that was an eye opener for me. People think that Zillow is there to help them buy and sell a house. Zillow is there to capture your personal information and sell it to a realtor.
All right. So if somebody who's listening to the show today is thinking about getting into the real estate world, talking about what you just talked about, what would you have them look into, or make sure they know regarding that scaling process?
Well, I think it's really important to know who you are and where your strengths are. I came into real estate with a pretty extensive resume, business background, new business development, that kind of thing. And I'm pretty self-driven. I get up no problem without an alarm clock every day about 5 o'clock, and that's not because I'm getting older. It's just because that's my discipline. And it's getting easier to get up at 5 a.m. I'm not going to lie, but uh,
Great.
but that's just a habit. So, are you a good habit former? Not everybody is, and it's not a moral judgment. You just have to know who you are, and know where your strengths are. So that's really step one. Because if you're not the disciplined person, it's going to make a decision on how you enter in as a realtor. Maybe you need to be part of a team. Maybe you need to belong to a big brokerage because they're going to provide a lot of services for you and a lot of accountability I think a lot of young new realtors that are coming in, that accountability piece, because they're new as a professional, not just into real estate. It helps to have someone who says, "Hey, we didn't see you at the team meeting today." For other people, me, I came into real estate with almost 30 years of working experience. I don't need someone to tell me to get out of bed. So, step one, know who you are and what you need. Um, and I probably second thing is don't latch on to the first thing that comes along. The first person to call you isn't necessarily the best fit for you. So shop around, look for the right brokerage, the one that fits your personality, and the one that's going to give you the support that you need. Don't pretend to know everything, but have the resources to get the answers.
If I got my license, oh, Mike's Realty, do I need to be affiliated with a big brokerage or where do I hang my license?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I kind of had skipped over that. So, unless you're a brokerage yourself, so you've gotten your BIC license and you've got an LLC or an S corp that is its own brokerage, for errors and admissions purposes, for licensing purposes, you have to hang your license with another brokerage. So so Tabitha and David Burkhead, we're a team, Birkhead Realty Group. We hang our license with Fathom Realty. They're our parent brokerage, so they're the ones that uh, uh, are responsible for making sure that our license and our continuing education and our compliance to the regulation of the North Carolina Real Estate Commission is all kept up to snuff. So that's why you hang a brokerage. The lowest common denominator is you hang your license with a brokerage in order to validate your license and make sure you're in compliance. All the other things that come with the brokerage are upsell, right? So one of the reasons why we hang our license with Fathom is they provide us just what we need, and they provide some additional services, but for the most part, they're a value opportunity. We pay a fraction of what larger brokerages pay per transaction in order to have our errors and emissions and all that. So that's what I mean by shopping around. You might need to pay more in a transaction because you need more because you're new, maybe you're new to business in general, not just real estate. So a bigger shop, national brand might be more appropriate for you because you need that help. But if you're an experienced business person and you know how to run a CRM and how to do sales, there's a whole library of other brokerages out there that can help you.
And explain what a BIC is.
Sorry, thank you. Broker in charge. Broker in charge.
So I would have to get my real estate license and my broker's license.
You have to. Yeah, exactly. Well, there's several ways you can do it. You can own a brokerage and you're not the BIC. So you can own a brokerage
Uh,
and hire a BIC, right? Or you can be a BIC and also own the brokerage. But
okay.
at the end of the day, you have to be a broker in charge in order to manage other people.
Got you. Okay. Good to know. Yeah, because it's those things you learn that I had no idea what a broker was until I got into BNI. I learned more about real estate. So good. Glad to have you explained that to us. All right. So one of the fun parts of the show for me is when I have a married guest on. Your wife's name is Tabitha. We've spoken about her often. You guys have 7 kids combined, correct?
We do. We're a blended family.
All
Yep.
right. So my 2 questions, how did you and Tabitha meet? And do you both tell the story the same way?
Oh boy. Yeah. So we met like everybody does. We met online.
That is, I'm telling you, man, the last 4 or 5 guests of the last 8 or 10 guests, I think half of them met their spouse online. It's very, very popular.
yeah. So we met online, but it was funny. We both really weren't being very upfront and honest about being online. I really had gotten tired of dating, and so I had a profile up there which was not interested. But if you want to, if you're looking to get a friend group together or something something more social, let's get together. And then Tabitha was actually, she's a mom in the area. She really didn't want a lot of visibility. So she had a profile, but no pictures. And if anyone's done online dating, that's a big red flag, right? So I get this text message from the app because we had both worked out in the same gym, and so there's some software there that says, "Hey, you two
Ah,
like each other, and you work out at the same place." So she reached out and said, "Hey, would you be interested in meeting?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And I was expecting, what I've learned to expect from those situations to come walking through the door. And instead, breath of fresh air, as they say, came through the door, and beautiful, and she was fun, and we started dating, and the rest is history. How she would tell it, it's a good question. She said that my online profile made me look like I was short and fat. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's certainly not the 6'3" person that I am. So I don't know why she bothered to show up if she wasn't interested in short, fat people, but you know, um, we all need love.
Yep. And then she wanted to meet a man that made her laugh, right? Isn't that another
Yeah,
one of the boxes to check? Yep.
right,
Yep.
right.
So any of the kids interested in the real estate world yet?
Maybe. I have one of my sons, Connor. He's at ECU, going into his sophomore year. He's in psychology. He has got some crazy good soft skills. Um, so not sure where he's going to go with psychology. He thinks maybe he wants to be a family therapist, but I could see him possibly getting into it at some point in time. We have a daughter who's a bartender up in Pittsburgh, who played in real estate very briefly. Didn't stay with it. But the rest, no. I'm in the mix. I've got uh, a kid who's applying to veterinary school to be a veterinarian, a wild animal veterinarian. I've got a couple mechanics in the family, and a volleyball star that I don't know what she wants to do professionally, other than maybe see if she can stretch out volleyball as long as possible.
All right. So going back to Connor and his family therapist approach, isn't that kind of what you and Tabitha do with couples buying or selling a house?
That's exactly more times than not. More times than not. Yeah. Oh yeah. Real estate's very emotional
Yeah.
process for some people. Oh, it's. I have a client right now who um, has been in her home for a very, very long time. She's going to assisted living, and that transition is very scary. So, I think where my value is one of my values is I was a kid who was son to a long-term care nurse and administrator. I spent a lot of afternoons after school hanging out in nursing homes and helping my mom around that nursing home. So, helping people, it's one of the niches that I specialize in, is people who are transitioning from a home that they might have been in for a very long time. They've got a lifetime of things and memories, and they need to figure out how to transition from 3,000 square feet to 600 or 800 square feet. That is a very difficult process. So, to have empathy for that is definitely every bit a family therapist. You bet.
Now, how often are both spouses on the same page about buying or selling?
Oh, almost never. But the real question is um, how smart is the husband?
Please explain.
Right? Because it's funny, we look at this as changing over time from a societal perspective, but I will tell you that even the most modern day contemporary couple still falls into, one of them is the decision maker, and one of them is the one that feels things out almost inevitably. And sometimes I've had it switch where more traditionally it's the wife that is kind of feeling out the home space and what this means for their family, and it's the husband that's more transactionally oriented. So it does flip sometimes, but 9 times out of 10, it's that traditional role. And mom's thinking about the kids' rooms, how it's going to feel. Can they go? Can they walk outside in the neighborhood and feel safe? Are they going to make friends? Are the kids going to make friends? Do they like the school? All of those kind of peripheral things that add value to a house, right? So, it's not just the structure; it's the lifestyle that surrounds it. It's how do they see themselves in that house, and what's that going to do for their family, and how's that going to feel? That's typically not the role of the husband. The husband just wants to make sure that he feels like the mom feels like it's going to work out. So
Yeah.
the smart husband, especially if you think about a family with children, is letting the mom kind of make the decision on the feel part, and then they're coming through and being the practical. Is it in budget? Is it in good repair? Is it a wise investment?
Do you prefer working with buyers versus sellers?
Well, it depends on which side that's two sides of a coin, right? So, from a business perspective, every day of the week, 365 days a year, the right question operationally is sellers. Sellers are oftentimes two transactions, not one, and they're the most operationally affordable side of that transaction. Buyers for me are emotionally the more rewarding. You get to know the buyer more. You spend more face to face time with a buyer, especially if they're relocating and they're really leaning on you to be a local resource, not just a realtor. So you definitely develop more of a relationship with a buyer. Even though I'm an introvert, I'm a deep relational person. I really get to know people, and so the buy side's the more emotionally rewarding, but the list side is the better operational financial decision.
Do you know when you're working with a couple that are buying a house, can you tell early on if this is going to be a long process because they're looking for two completely different things?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Most of the time it's not too far off. As long as both of them are on the same page about they're going to make the transaction happen. I have had a couple kind of sabotage moments where, a spouse is playing nice in a conversation, but has no intention of moving. And so you kind of ferret that out a little bit. One of the great things about being a husband and wife team is if I kind of sniff that out a little bit, having my wife in the room, if we tag team, if we partner on a listing, um, you know, uh, whichever spouse has the reservation, whether it's the husband or the wife, they'll they'll have a sidebar conversation. I'm not really interested in doing this. so there's a huge upside to having a husband wife team. Sometimes you know Tabitha, my wife, she's incredibly charismatic. She's really good at connecting with people very quickly. She's extremely likable. My joke is, if we're the Rolling Stones, I'm the drummer and she's Mick Jagger, right? She's by all means the more interesting of the two of us. So when we're in a room together, we definitely complement each other. We bring different value to the sellers or the buyers as far as what their emotional needs are.
I think that makes you, is it Ronnie Wood was the drummer?
I couldn't remember, so thank
Okay, I think so, yeah.
you.
So one of my favorite things in a number of industries in BNI and especially in real estate is I refer to him as Uncle Billy. So you have a buyer and you know what that house should be listed at, but they tell you, well, my uncle kind of dabbles in real estate and he think it should be either like 25 higher, 25 lower. How do you deal with that?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I could have killed one of my subcontractors the other day because we're flipping a house out in the western part of Raleigh, over closer to Burlington, and uh, he was proud of his work, as he should be, very talented. And he said to my investor, "Oh, you should easily be able to sell this house for," and he threw out a really high number, right? Of course, now my investors are like, "Well, he said we could sell it for this." I'm like, "Okay, look, I look at numbers every day, all day long, about what things are worth, and it's what makes me a realtor." He does not. He does not. I'm sure he would. Of course, we would all love to sell that, $300,000 house for 1 million, but it just doesn't happen that
Yeah,
way.
yeah. So you have a Bachelor of Science in Education from Butler University.
Yeah.
You enrolled in 1991. On that first day, David Burkhead, what was the plan?
Survive. I will tell you that I did not grow up until I was about 25. As a 6'3", 130-pound freshman, I was tall, skinny, and out to have a lot of fun, which is exactly what I did. At the end of my first year, my dad looked at my GPA and said, we're not sending you back if you can't bring up your grades. So I enjoyed my time at Butler very, very much. I was very excited to see them play against Duke in basketball a couple times. 1 point away from beating Duke both times back to back. I was disappointed we didn't beat the Blue Devils, but uh, that first day I was there just to have a good time. I actually went to school initially to follow the path that my oldest son ultimately pursued, which is animal sciences. And I got to the end of my halfway through my senior year, and a guy who was a big influence on me. I was working for the YMCA in Summers, a guy named Harry Kramer, just huge influence in my life. Severe dyslexic, by the way, but master with remembering names. He could remember 500 names, like
Wow.
crazy, crazy skills. Um, but he said to me as we were wrapping up the season, he says, "So, are you student teaching?" And I said, "No, I'm in animal sciences. I'm animal behavioralist." He's like, "What? You need to be a teacher." And he had such an influence on me. I immediately went back and switched to elementary education. And thanks to a good advisor, magically so, animal behavioralism and elementary education evidently are kissing cousins. So with one extra semester, I was an elementary school teacher.
Yeah, and back to the Butler Duke relationship. If Butler had made, I think it was in the last shot of the championship game. If that goes in, who knows what both programs look like today?
Oh my gosh, Gordon
Yep.
Hayward, he was
Yeah.
like the analysis of margin of error on that
Mhm.
win was, I think, something like 6 pages in Sports Illustrated. You know, like the analysis on that half of a second
Yep.
was pages in an article. It was like so
Yep.
painful, so painful.
Oh, can't
Mhm.
imagine. So
PTSD.
yeah, yep. All right. So somebody's seriously thinking about the real estate world. What one or two things do they need to either have in place or have access to, or something along those lines before they even go take the test or start studying for the test?
Um, Probably one of the most important things is to understand you don't get your license and turn over a business inside of a day. So you've got to have a plan to survive for a period of time. You've got to build a book of business. If you don't, well, it's time or money, right? So if you don't have the money, make sure you budget the time. You can always buy your friends. So for the right amount of money, you can pay a lot of money to pay Zillow and Redfin and Realtor to feed you cold leads that you can then nurture and convert into business. But it is an exorbitant amount of money. Uh, Otherwise, you need to have time to grow your sphere and build your relationships with people. If you're naturally gifted at that, then it'll take you a little less. But I would give yourself at least 6 months to a year to be able to collect your first paycheck. Honestly, you might get lucky, and one might come in early. Sometimes people get low hanging fruit when they first come in because they're going to make a lot of noise about just getting licensed. Um, but market conditions are tough. Right now, the real estate market is doing great, but the volume of transactions is very slow. So if you consider, I've heard 12, I've heard 14, I've heard 17,000 realtors, licensed realtors in the Raleigh metro area. I think it's declined quite a bit over the last 3 years. But those are all people trying to make friends with your friends. So you've got to be prepared to take the time to build those relationships. So make sure you've got some money in the bank and some time to grow. Find yourself a good mentor.
Yep, because small business ownership on its own is a leap of faith, but
Yeah.
100% commission is a whole nother lifestyle.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, I would say 9 to 10. I'm with you. They've got to go into it knowing I'm not going to make a penny for 9 months, and if it happens, it happens, and that's found money. But you got to know it's going to be a long grind because I would bet you, David, 1% of the realtors in the Triangle you would say do how much of the business?
Well, so National Association of Realtors last year said that 70% of all licensed realtors in the country made no money last year. 70%
Wow.
did zero transactions last year. And of the remaining 30%, what I know is, well, I'll say it to you this way. When we think about trying to find other realtors, the threshold to join like a team or a brokerage, the threshold is so low. If they've successfully closed 1 or 2 transactions in the last year, they're a top performer. They've beaten the majority of that 30% that's left,
Wow.
right? So just to close 1 or 2
Yeah.
transactions, you automatically start jumping to the top. So if you're doing 2, 3, 4 transactions a month, you're a top performer.
Yeah.
That's how slow the market is right now. And
And
that's
it,
hard earned business.
yeah. And it's what, anywhere for, depending on who's setting the price, 2 to 3% of the sale price, if you're going to get that at all, right?
It's from a commission perspective.
Yep.
Yeah, but the thing people overlook there is you've got operational cost.
Yep.
You're driving that car around. That car is expensive, right? You've got operational costs, you've got licensing costs, you've got continuing education costs. Unless you're a terrible realtor, which there are several out there, if you're doing the base level of business, you're taking a listing, you're putting it on the MLS. That is not being a realtor. Being a realtor is marketing. So you've got marketing expense. You're putting money into your client's opportunity in order to show your value and to convert a sale for your client. So of that 2 to 3% that you're taking commission, you might keep half of it,
Yeah.
and then you've got to pay taxes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah. So anyway, stuff like that, you need to, we've been putting David's number up here during the show. If you have a couple questions, he's always happy to help. But you need to think long. It can be a very good living, correct, David?
that's great living. I love
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But there's some work to be done. I mean, the really good realtors that I know in BNI or outside of BNI, at their core, they are hustlers. Because you got to meet somebody new every day because it may take 7 months for something to come from that. So no, we appreciate all the tips. So folks, if you're interested in the industry, which very good living, very competitive, tough at what 6.78 or 5% right now, interest rate, but it can be done. It can be done. So, but always look for a professional. If you're looking to buy or sell a house, folks, you want somebody like David. He can negotiate. He can show people. He can do all the things you need to do, whether you're buying or selling. So find somebody that does more than 0 transactions a year to represent you in either buying or selling a house. And his number's been on the screen. You can reach him at, what's the best website for people to go check you out on, David?
BirkheadRealty.com.
All right. Sounds good. David, thanks for being on the show today. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
the
Mike.
tips and the stories.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And we'll see everybody next time on Capital to the Coast BNI.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com and DeltaForce.net.